Saw dudes, with the release of Melee Exilist mods and Arcanes, a lot of older weapons have been revitalized. Corufell is one of those weapons. A viewer actually suggested I make this video, so this is for you, Novanist. I took some time to farm out this weapon's parts from the Tiana Pass mission on Mars and got to work playtesting some builds. I have 3 builds for you all today, so less yapping and more build crafting. Let's get started. Stats come first. Corufell is interesting. It is one of 2 Heavy Scythe weapons, with the other being Hespar. It has a base attack speed of 1, which sounds okay, but Heavy Scythes attack slowly, so this isn't very good at all. It has a range of 2.6 meters, which is disappointing given its apparent size. However, it has a 26% crit chance and a 2.4 times crit multiplier, which is pretty nice. The stats chance sits at a sad 14%. The light attack deals 200 damage per swing, 96 is impact, 68 is puncture, and 36 is slash. This is a horrible IPS spread, so don't expect it to be a Chronon Prime wannabe. On to something a bit more impressive, the heavy attack. Heavy attacks with the Corufell briefly turn it into a gunblade that can fire 2 consecutive shots before going back into a heavy scythe. It shares the same crit stats and status chance as the normal attacks. However, it deals 600 heat damage per shot. The projectiles from the heavy attack are pretty large, have infinite body punch through, and can reach up to 30 meters. Keep in mind that there is linear damage falloff from 100% to 50% from 15 meters to 30 meters. Also, the projectile has multiplicative conditional overload scaling. You will see this being put to great use in the background. When comparing the Corufell to the Hespar, you'll see that the Corufell has some pretty dog water stats. Hespar has 2% less crit chance and a 2.2 crit multiplier as opposed to 2.4. However, its light attack does more damage, is much more slash weighted, and it possesses a 28% innate status chance. This means that Corufell is pretty much a heavy attack one-trick pony. Onto the builds. First off, we have the Tennokai build. The introduction of Tennokai in the last major update opened up a lot of build paths for many weapons and is especially true for the Corufell. We will be utilizing the heavy attack most of the time, only using the light attacks to get Tennokai opportunity pop-ups. Gale Force Dawn is the only stance that we can use at the time of this video. It has a lot of force proc slash in regular combos, but it's clunky and doesn't feel that great to use. Plus, it has some pretty bad combo multipliers. In the Exilist slot, we are using Dreamer's Wrath for the highest damage possible on Tennokai attacks. This mod is perfect for bringing up opportunity chance and the crit damage for Acolyte nukes. The arcane we will be using is Melee Animosity, which increases crit chance for heavy attacks for every light attack we deal. This pairs well with our Tennokai mod and will bring up raw damage even more. Condition Overload is used for the multiplicative scaling with the heavy attack and increased damage with the light attacks. This is mainly used for setting up heavy nukes. Killing Blow lowers the heavy attack windup speed and increases heavy attack damage. Blood Rush increases crit chance for both heavy and light attacks scaling with the combo counter. Amalgam Organ Shatter increases crit damage and reduces heavy windup speed again. Gladiator Vice increases attack speed for ease of use. Attack speed is necessary on the build to make Tennokai easier to proc. Gladiator Might raises the crit damage once again. Keep in mind that the Gladiator set mods act like a mini Blood Rush for even more crit chance. Finally, we have Prime Fever Strike and Shocking Touch for corrosive damage. These 2 mods make the heavy attack of the Corufell a nightmare for everything. This build feels pretty good to use most of the time, but it's still not perfect. Since the setup relies on Tennokai, you could get unlucky and go long periods without getting a heavy attack opportunity. Also, the attack speed of Heavy Scythes is so slow that I actually can't take Gladiator Vice off unless I have an external buff. If you are using a frame that can substantially increase attack speed like Gauss, Whisper Volt, you can swap out Gladiator Vice for Sacrificial Steel. We will delve more into frame synergies later on in the video. Another substitute for Gladiator Vice could be Focus Radon for additional radiation damage. Armored units will pretty much evaporate when they're hit by a heavy attack. Focus Radon is nice for a couple of reasons. It makes the heavy attack deal 3 types of damage: corrosive, radiation, and heat. Also, it increases combo efficiency, making Tennokai less punishing if a heavy attack input is missed. Just remember to use an external attack speed source. Build 2 does not use Tennokai and instead opts to use a permanent 12 times combo solution. For this setup, we will use Melee Crescendo. Every finisher will permanently add 1 hit to the combo counter for the unranked version. Ranking this up adds more hits to the combo counter, making it easier to stack up faster in missions. Don't bother getting it to rank 5, 2 or 3 is enough. We are once again using Gale Force Dawn in the stance slot because this is our only option. In the Exilist slot, we will use Dispatch Overdrive for the movement speed bonus on heavy attack. We are once again using Condition Overload for the most amount of damage possible with priming. Killing Blow is here for additional heavy attack damage and windup speed. Blood Rush is important for this build because Melee Crescendo can build up to 12 times combo. It may take a while with lower ranks of the arcane, but it does bring value to Blood Rush easily. Amalgam Organ Shatter raises crit and windup speed. Sacrificial Steel is here for raw crit chance. It helps Corufell get over the initial hump of crit chance at the start of the mission. Gladiator Might raises crit damage again, and scales with Blood Rush via Melee Crescendo. Prime Fever Strike is combined with Focus Energy for raw damage. We aren't using Shocking Touch because we need some form of heavy attack efficiency. Even though we have Melee Crescendo bringing us back to 12 times combo, each heavy will consume the whole counter and need to briefly recharge. Focus Energy reduces the cost of heavies and thus reduces the recharge delay. This build is really fun to run. especially in endurance settings. However, I would advise you to at least have a rank 2 melee Crescendo for quality of life. I had an unranked copy and it sucked to stack it up. Additionally, you will probably want a grouping ability and an armor strip ability for higher levels. Grouping helps with finishers and getting higher KPM with a heavy attack. Armor strip is necessary for tankier units. Finally, we have build 3, an initial combo build meant for grouping setups and base deal path. You can likely bring this build to about level 500 easily, but I would switch it out afterward. Gale Force Dawn sits in the stand slot as usual. Since this is a heavy attack only build, Dispatch Overdrive takes up the Exilus slot. We will be using melee exposure for additional corrosive damage on ability cast. This will allow us to stack different statuses on the build. Condition Overload and Killing Blow are here to create nukes. Corrupt Charge gives us 30 initial combo for a 2x heavy attack multiplier. Amalgam Organ Shatter raises crit damage alongside Gladiator Might. Sacrificial Steel is important on this build since we won't be making use of Blood Rush. Finally, we will be using Pride Fever Strike and Focus Radon. Since we have melee exposure granting us plenty of corrosive damage, we won't need to mod for it on the weapon. The heavy attack deals pure heat damage, so Prime Fever Strike creates gas. Focus Radon grants us radiation damage. Gas isn't the greatest damage type, but it does work well with grouping setups for quadratic scaling. However, since our status is low, I wouldn't count on it too much. Corrosive and radiation damage is great against armored units, so nuking them shouldn't be too much of an issue in base deal path and a little beyond that. All of the Corufell builds today use Condition Overload for the most amount of damage possible. You will need a primer, and I suggest using Epitaph. Buvu Bukor is not the best primer in this situation because it doesn't offer forced cold procs. The forced cold procs from Epitaph increase the critical damage that enemies take by 10% up to 50%. This is a flat bonus and is additive after mods. If you want to squeeze out as much damage as possible, use the Epitaph. Lethal Torrent and Barrel Diffusion raise multi-shot, and Prime Fulmination increases the AoE size for easier priming. Gunslinger raises the fire rate again. Pistol Pestilence and Frostbite provide viral damage, whereas Scorch provides heat. These 3 mods also bump up status chance for better application. Augur Seeker increases the status duration for ease of use. Pistol ammo mutation isn't required, but highly recommended. The arcane you should use is Secondary Encumber. This will apply many more status effects than with Secondary Dexterity and raise our damage ceiling. Finally, I do want to recommend one Warframe in particular, that being Volt. Volt is a great Warframe because he can potentially offer all the things needed to make Corufell shine. His speed ability is great for light attacks. This is especially important for the Tennokai version of the build. His electric shield doubles modded critical damage for even more nuke potential with heavy attacks. It also adds electricity damage that does not combine with modded elements. This means that there can be 3 elements on the heavy attack at base. Most of the time, Volt Shock will be subsumed off, meaning that a grouping ability or armor strip ability can be slapped on. If you don't want to use Speedy Boy Volt, you can also try Kullervo. He is known as a melee Warframe thanks to his first ability granting red crits for melee weapons. This choice is more situational though, so take it with a grain of salt. I hope you enjoyed the updated Corufell build. If I'm being completely honest, this weapon is not my cup of tea. I think that the gimmick is very strong, but the light attacks are just not there. This is mostly due to the clunky stance and lack of range. I really hope that two-handed sides get a bit more love. Hespar is a beautiful weapon, but it still suffers from the same issues. That being said, Corufell's gimmick is easily a 9 out of 10. It has great damage, scales very well, and is usable. If the issues I mentioned are fixed, I can see myself using this weapon a lot more. Let me know what you think about the builds in the comments. As always, thank you all for watching, and happy farming.